Welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm Sharon, your resident skeptic who asks all the tough questions. And with me is Jennifer Neal, our manifesting maestro. Whether you're rolling your eyes or raising your vibration, we dive into all things manifestation, mindset, and energy from every side. Hit subscribe, settle in, and get ready for spirited debates, surprising experiments, and laughter on the journey to creating a life you love. Today, we're going to talk about abundance living in tiny things. Jennifer, how are you today?
I am great. I'm great. Shall we dive right in?
Let's do that.
So, sometimes abundance, I want to talk about abundance today. It's a big topic. It's very trendy right now. But abundance isn't always the big wins or the big paychecks or the big dream trips. And I've had all of those. We both have, right? Like we've both experienced that kind of abundance. But it's also living in the tiny things, the little gestures, the small details, the moments that make you stop and think, wow, life is actually really beautiful. So the other day, my sister brought this little hostess gift over, and it was just a box of crackers, but she had tied it with a gold bow and it had a handwritten tag. Um, and she's quite an artist. So she sketched out a little pumpkin on it. She had beautiful handwriting. And I was floored because this tiny little inexpensive gift was what I would call magazine worthy. It wasn't about the money she'd spent. In fact, I think the bow she had recycled off of another box of chocolates, but it was about the care and the quality and the thought. And that's what really made me realize that abundance really lives in tiny things.
I saw that on your TikTok, and I'll admit it was absolutely adorable. But here's my question. Are we calling it abundance just so we make ourselves feel better about small things? Like, is this the spiritual version of settling?
Aha, I see where we've missed the point here, or you've missed the point, maybe. When we overlook the small, we cut ourselves off from the energetic state that attracts more. Okay? Does that make sense?
It does.
So, regardless of size, amount, regardless, you can feel abundance just as much in a $4 box of crackers as you can with a $400,000 car, right? It's not about the money, it's about the feeling.
Okay, so let's define it a little bit because tiny things could just mean nice things we notice. Are you saying that it's more than that?
No, it is that, exactly. So when I say abundance lives in tiny things, I mean that the frequency, the energy, the spirit of abundance that feels full and feels, you feel grateful for it and you feel the beauty of it. That doesn't need to be big. It's available in micro moments all the time. And I'm sure we can all relate to something like this. For example, I'm looking out my window right now. The sun is coming up and it's hitting the trees in the golf course in such a way that it looks like a painting, right? I'm feeling that. The smell of my first cup of coffee in the morning. I feel that. And this perfectly wrapped little box of pumpkin spice crackers, I brought me a lot of joy. It's the feeling we're after.
So, what you're saying is abundance isn't actually the thing, it's the state you're in.
Exactly. It's the frequency that you can tune into. And that's the irony that people are constantly chasing more. And the ones that are chasing more often miss that the signal is found in the smallest stuff. It's like a whisper, it's not a shout.
Okay, so I get that in theory, but then how do you reconcile that with ambition? Like, can you feel abundant while also wanting more?
Totally. Because feeling abundant now is what makes more possible. Gratitude is a magnet for expansion. So it's not about choosing between small joys and big dreams. It's about realizing that those two things, the sunset, the coffee, your cat, they're on the same frequency as the travel, the money, the love, the health. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, so let's dig into that a little bit because from the skeptic seat, I think people conflate contentment with complacency. So if I keep telling myself I already have enough, won't that make me stop striving?
Yeah, that's the myth. But I want you again, go back to that emotional guidance system that we talked about a few podcasts ago and look at where contentment sits. Just look, I encourage all of you, pull up, Google it, emotional guidance system, pull up where contentment sits. You will see it's very high up. And if you're content, you'll attract more things to be content about.
Okay.
So when you anchor in that, this is enough. I love this. Your energy stops being desperate. It stops chasing from a lack perspective. And that need to feel good blocks the flow. So when you already feel good, when you already feel full, when you already feel content, frequency attracts more to match that energy.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's like a paradox. The less you cling, the more comes to you.
Exactly. You know, think of it like my sister's little gift. She didn't overthink it. She didn't need to impress me, anyone. She created something thoughtful with her currency. Remember, we talked about the talent of your currency being talent. This is her talent. She created something thoughtful with what she had. And that's the frequency of abundance. I have so much. I have ribbon and a box of crackers. For me, that is enough to create something joyful. And it created in her creativity, calm, and generous energy.
You know, that reminds me of people who live in a small apartment, but they make them feel like these luxury hotels, like these gorgeous little jewel boxes with fresh flowers and candlelight and cozy music. And to me, that sounds like abundance energy. Is it?
1,000%. And I can tell you, my last apartment was above a restaurant, a 2-bedroom apartment. After my divorce, I gave my kids the 2 bedrooms. I slept on the couch for 4 years, but I never complained. I loved it. I had fresh flowers. I lit candles. I made it as beautiful and luxurious as I possibly could. And that is what we're after. Abundance is sensory, it's not monetary. It's this feeling of beauty meeting awareness. Does that make sense?
It does. And I recall being in that apartment and just how lovely it is. And what I remember is the beautiful scent of the candles, the terrific meal you made us, and that bottle of wine. And it was more about being with you and the energy than thinking it was a walk up from a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't live there anymore. I
Yeah.
overlook a golf course. So if anyone out there thinks that if they love where they are too much, they'll never get the dream, that's hogwash. The more you love where you are right now, the more and faster the dream will come.
Okay, so let's get into the science a bit for a minute. Is there any proof that noticing small things actually changes your state?
Absolutely. Gratitude activates dopamine. And I'm not a scientist, okay? So I know the bare minimum of this just to appease you scientists out there, the guys that want the scientific proof. Gratitude activates dopamine and serotonin. So it literally shifts your mood chemistry. And when you focus on beauty, like nature, when you go out for, why is it when you go out for a walk in nature, you feel better?
Yeah.
A lot of people do. You know, when you focus on beauty, when you focus on just that, the autumn leaves right now that I'm looking at, your brain begins scanning for more beauty. It's like you talked about almost in episode 1, the confirmation bias. Your brain starts looking for confirmation that what you're actually seeing and believing is true. Okay. So this is the cognitive feedback that you get.
Right. So it's like that reticular activating system we've talked about near the very beginning of all of this when you buy a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Exactly. When you start acknowledging tiny abundance and you see it, you will start to see it everywhere. The universe doesn't suddenly change, your filter does. Did everybody hear that? The universe doesn't change. Your perspective, your filter does. And that's why the crackers my sister bought me meant so much, because my awareness was tuned to beauty and love and thoughtfulness. Now, I'll tell you this. I know some people that would have looked at that box of crackers and thought, well, that was a cheap gift. And she used a recyclable bow. Boy, must have meant a lot to her. They're going to keep seeing that in their life.
Right.
Examples of cheapness, examples of people that don't value them, that don't love them. It works both ways.
Look, I think there's another way to look at it too, as well. And the beauty of it isn't necessarily the box of crackers with the bow, it's noticing that the person who's doing the giving put in their talent to make something lovely and beautiful for you. Because I know me, I mean, if it was a box of crackers and a bow, I would mess that up because that's not where my talent lies. But that person
Right.
showed you their best talent as well.
Yeah, but you're talking from your higher self right now. That's the way we're supposed it is. That's the way we're supposed to look at life. That's the higher self talking. Well, she meant well, that was her talent. A lot of people out there are not working from their higher self, and they will look at that as an out, a cheapskate, and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it would be great if everything how many times have you gotten a Christmas gift or a gift and thought, this person doesn't know me at all? Is that the best they've got? Have you ever thought that? I have.
I have.
I'll tell you, one year I got a gift for Christmas, and it was one of those boxed sets of soap and bubbles and bath oil. And that was the only gift I got from this person. And I thought, that's the best you could do. And now back, like this is 25 years ago. And now I look back on that and go, shame on you, Jennifer. The fact they bought you a gift at all and thought of you. So do you see what I mean by the higher self?
Yeah, and maybe that was, in that point of time, the best they could do.
Totally.
Yeah,
And they didn't care about gifting like I did. Like I gift like it's an Olympic sport, right? Our family does, but not everybody views gifting that way.
yeah,
Other things mean more to them.
yeah. So noticing small abundance is kind of like setting the algorithm of your brain, like training it to recommend joy instead of scarcity.
Yeah, so that's a great way to put it. I think you can train your mind. Again, it's all about the mind and awareness. So you have to be aware to do this, but you can train your mind to be your own abundance algorithm.
Okay, so let's get into the practical ways we can notice abundance.
Okay.
So I like lists. So maybe every day write down three small, beautiful things you notice. So not this big gratitude journal, because you know me and journals don't get along very well, but
I'm going to
just
change
say,
that. I'm going to change that.
you're going to change that? You're going to change
Yes.
me.
Yeah, I'm going to change your love for journaling.
Okay, so I can handle a note in my phone.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing I could see is to slow down. You can't see abundance if you're rushing past it.
Yes. So that's great. So from the believer side, I would add a few things. So add some sensory cues. What do I mean by that? I mean light a candle. I have I've lit a candle. You can see it right here. I've lit a candle for this podcast recording. Play some music if that's your thing. Use your favorite mug. Treat simple moments like rituals. I'll give you another example, and there's a TikTok on this if anybody wants to go check it out. Every year when clementines come out around November, December, I buy clementines. I heap them in a bowl. Just looking at them makes me feel joyful. But when I peel a clementine, all that comes to me is this overwhelming remembrance of Christmas and how wonderful my Christmases were and how joyful and all the greatness of my Christmases. Not everybody has that, but for me, that is a sensory moment that allows me to drop into the feeling of abundance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So
Okay,
that's so sensory cues would be one. Number two, give something small, like beautifully. Give something beautiful but small. For example, you know, wrap your lunch with care or somebody else's lunch with care. Handwrite a note. Bring crackers with a bow. You know, you can become a conduit of abundance. Today, I am making a full meal for a family that is grieving the loss of their mom. And just taking over the food and wrapping, and I made them some brownies and I made them some handmade Caesar salad dressing and a casserole. Just that and taking the care of how I package that up, that's abundance. For me, it's joyful. And so, doing that, doing things with care is also a big signal of living in abundance. And then
I
number three,
if I can. I think the
yeah,
interesting thing about that is whenever we make something with our hands, whether it's something as small like a cup of tea for a friend, or baking a loaf of bread, or something as big as a full meal that you're doing, or a little piece of art, I think there's a different sensory feeling around the giving of something like that. It just seems to me like there's more intentionality and more heart to it. I could be wrong.
I think we have to be careful with that one though too, because again, that's saying that someone that didn't make it from the heart and went and bought the crackers isn't as intentional, right?
I hear what you're
Um,
saying, and that's not what I mean at all. But I guess for me, because I'm someone who likes to make things, that to me is where
that's
I
abundance for
speak
you.
from in terms of abundance. Yeah.
Totally. But if I didn't like to make things and I just called the Chinese food guy and surprised them with Chinese food on the front doorstep tonight, that's still abundance, right?
Got
I
it.
often recall we used to go to my mother-in-law's for Sunday night dinner every Sunday night when my kids were little, and they didn't have a lot. They were the most wonderful, loving family, my mother and father-in-law. They didn't have a lot though, but what they did have was a joy. She had a joy of cooking. And when I think back now at the amount of money they spent on groceries, knowing they didn't have a lot, the spreads they would put on, that was pure abundance. And again, it was a beautiful small thing making a meal, but for them, I'm sure it made them feel extremely abundant to be able to put those spreads on, right? When
Right.
you're that kind of things. Anyway, I'll move on from this. Number 3, I would say speak abundance out loud. This feels so good. Oh my gosh, this moment feels so rich. That sunset is gorgeous. Like, I love how full my life feels right now. I'm so lucky. Somebody said to me last week, "How are you, Jen?" I said, "I'm living my best life." Those are abundance statements. And language can also code energy. You know the difference between someone that says, "I'm living my best life," and someone that says, "Well, you know."
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really about attention. What you pay attention to expands, and whether that's problems or beauty.
Exactly. The small becomes sacred when you decide that it is sacred.
Okay, so let's talk about the opposite when you feel empty. What about people who are in lack financially, emotionally, spiritually? And this all sounds nice, but maybe a little bit impossible. Like, great, Jen, I'll look for beauty after I pay the rent.
Listen, that is the real work, and I have been there. I think we can both say we've been there, right? Times of stretch, times of struggle, times of really struggling to see where the abundance is. That's where the real work is. Listen, abundance doesn't mean pretending things are perfect. It means finding one tiny thing that is perfect. We have to find places where abundance lives. So when you're in lack, you need to start at the microscopic level. Like, I still have air to breathe. Maybe, listen, there's some people I know that are so in debt right now, it's drowning them. They're losing their homes. I'm listening to you. I'm seeing you. I hear this. What do you have though? You still have your breath. You still have good air to breathe. You still might have one friend who cares. Those tiny acknowledgments shift your vibration even for just a minute. And the key there is to stack those. Find them more often throughout the day. Take that minute and be grateful for that friend or that breath or that fresh air or the break. When you start small, you open the door to more.
So even when the big picture might feel bleak, tiny abundance becomes a lifeline, like a thread that pulls you back into possibility.
Absolutely. That is a beautiful, I hope, can you say that again, please?
So even when the big picture feels bleak, tiny abundance becomes a lifeline or a thread that pulls you back into possibility.
That's it right there. That's the magic. And that's why tiny abundance matters so much. When you
Okay.
don't have anything else, or when you think you don't have anything else, it's the tiny things that are always still there. Sometimes you're so depressed, you need to really look for them, but it's hard to leap from despair to joy. We talked about this on that emotional guidance system. But you can move from despair to noticing one tiny beautiful thing, and then you're not in despair anymore. You're maybe in anger, but moving up that scale is where the game is at. And that's sometimes all it takes to start that momentum moving.
So what I'm hearing is that abundance isn't found in quantity. It's found in quality of attention, of intent.
Yes. Abundance is simply awareness. And awareness begins at the tiniest things.
So I think I can get behind that. Maybe I'll start by actually appreciating more things when I go on my walks, not try to avoid those monkeys so much, but giggle a little when I see them with their new babies and just breathe in that fresh air.
You're talking about real monkeys, right?
Of course I am. I see monkeys.
Right. I had to stop there for a minute because I was thinking of monkey brain, but you're talking about real monkeys. Don't
I
forget, Sharon
see
lives in Malaysia.
I see real monkeys on my walks every single day. Yes. And now they're having babies, which I absolutely love because these
Well,
babies
money
are
abundance.
they're golden for a week. For some reason these babies are born with golden fur for 1 week, and it's the sweetest thing to see.
See, there you go. That's abundance in action. And
Oh,
if you start to really maybe spend another 2 minutes watching the monkeys, you'll fully cross over into an absolutely blissful feeling.
okay. Well, you know me, I'm always willing to give it a try.
You are.
But, skeptics in the baby steps, that's where I'm out at.
Yeah, but that counts for sure. So here's your manifest homework this week. Everybody ready? I want you to find, I'm challenging you to find three tiny things today. And I would say every day, but maybe just between now and next week. I want you to find three tiny things that make you feel abundant. I want you to notice them. I want you to name them, and I want you to thank them. So whether you do this in a journal or whether you do this in just in your own head, that's the homework this week. Because when you see small things, this is the way the universe knows you're ready for bigger things.
Jen, I think the most important thing you said there was to thank them because that's where the gratitude sits. And we could all use a little bit more gratitude in our lives.
Yeah, that's
Thanks
good. That's
everybody.
all. That's all I got this week.
Fantastic. Okay, stay tuned for our next episode. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a friend, believer or skeptic. And don't forget to leave us a review so others can join in the debate. Plus, check out Jennifer's TikTok account, Manifestation RX, where she writes daily prescriptions for manifesting your dreams. Think practical tips with a dash of magic. We love hearing your questions and stories, so tell us what you're manifesting or questioning this week. Until next time, keep an open mind and maybe manifest a little magic.